Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the City Update. I'm your host, Mark Aaron, Multimedia Design Manager for the City of Danville. On this week's episode, we are going to give you an update on our Safe and Sound Neighborhood program here in the City of Danville. We launched this program back in November of last year to really fight crime in a targeted area in the north part of Danville. This area encompassed Riverside Drive to 3rd Avenue and from North Main Worsham Street to Locust Lane. And we are very excited to inform you all at home to let you know that we have really put a dent in the crime in that area. We're going to talk to Chief Philip Broadfoot today a little bit about some of what initiatives we took part in that area and what we've done to really fight crime in that community over the last 6 to 8 months. But not only did the police department take an active role in that community, many other city departments did as well. Our community development department really cracked down on code enforcement in that area, dealing with blight. Public Works did quite a few things in that area. And the community got involved as well, which is always a positive. They had a couple of block parties that took place in that area in early 2011, and of course our city departments were involved. We actually had some informational sessions in some of the neighborhoods, so we really feel that we increased the quality of life in that community here in the City of Danville. And on today's show, we're happy to announce that we are going to be launching a second targeted area in our community on the south side of the river. We'll focus more on that in the second half of the show. But first off, I want to welcome Chief Philip Broadfoot to the show today. And Chief, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Mark. Glad to be here.
And as part of this Safe and Sound initiative, I know the reason we really chose this targeted area was the high number of homicides that occurred in this area, I guess, over the last 6 years. And we're very happy to say that no homicides have occurred in the targeted area since we launched this initiative. But for the police department's role, you all started a street crimes unit. Now, for our viewers who may not be familiar with this unit, how is it really different from just your regular patrol officer?
A regular patrol officer is a uniformed officer driving a marked unit, and they are assigned to a beat. And the beats overlap, of course, in that target area, the focus area up on north of the river, right. The first area that we designated. Yeah. And the officer that is assigned to a beat is responsible for answering all of the emergency and non-emergency calls that come in that beat. And so they are limited in what they can do. They right. can't focus on one area and spend a lot of time dealing with a problem because they have to get back in the car and answer the call that comes in the next few minutes. Right. So they're limited. The street crimes unit that we created are not bound to that radio and to the 911 calls. They can back up the regular officers if needed, but their focus is to go into the community and focus on the issues that are creating problems with the quality of life. Right. And they have more time to do that.
Absolutely. Now, this unit was formed, as I mentioned, I think launched November 1st of last year. Now, how many officers do we have on this unit?
We've got 8 officers assigned to the street crimes unit, okay. And we didn't give them a different uniform, but what we ended up doing was they're wearing their police equipment, their vest, and their radios, and their gun belt. Okay. But we allowed them to wear blue jeans and a regular shirt. And the idea was to make them different from the regular beat officer that's in a uniform very similar to this, right. And so that they would be recognized, and also so it wouldn't cost a lot of money. We didn't yeah. want to get new uniforms, but right. so that the public would know that their function is different and their reason for being there is different.
And they worked a different shift from your normal officer as well. When were they present in the focus area?
Yeah, the regular beat officer, uniformed officer, is there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The street right. crimes unit focused in the evening hours and on the weekends.
Okay, very good. Now, tell me a little bit about, did they patrol on foot? Were they in vehicles during this time?
They're either on foot or in vehicles. And okay. The purpose is to get out and to find the people that are causing the quality of life problems. Right. And you have to do that. You have to get out. You have to check the abandoned houses. You have to work traffic. You have to work radar. You have to work stop signs. You have to be observant. And so they're very busy, very, very busy group of folks.
Well, we're going to go over some of the numbers that you all have compiled of arrests and things of that nature a little later in the show. But tell me a little bit about what they were looking for as they went out on the unit, the commands that they received from you as they hit the streets in that targeted area back in November.
Well, one of the initial concerns from some of the residents in the area was that it would be a lot of enforcement and directed toward law-abiding people who reside in the area, and there was a lot of concern with that, and I understand that. And so what we instructed the officers to do was to use a lot of discretion in the decisions to enforce the law. And for example, what they would do is they would either work radar or work stop signs in the area, and if they pulled somebody over that didn't have warrants, that wasn't suspended, that wasn't driving under the influence, that wasn't committing any other crimes, they'd give them a warning and let them go. Okay. And provided they lived in the area. Right. And so that worked very, very well. They were able to use the traffic enforcement to locate a number of people that had outstanding warrants and were served them. And they would engage people that were walking on the street, pedestrians, and talk with them and find out if they were committing any crimes, or if they were drunk in public, or if they were wanted. So it was a very, very active time for the street crimes unit.
And I know the criminal activity has really decreased in that area, and I'm sure it has a lot to do with the officers just being present, but also, as you said, walking the beat and becoming more familiar with the individuals in the area, and really creating a rapport with maybe some of the residents in the area that they, like you said, maybe wouldn't have had enough time if they were just a regular patrol officer, because they have such a large beat to cover. But that has to make a difference with them just being present there 2 or 3 or 4 times a week and just creating that rapport.
Oh, yes. I mean, the average size of an officer's beat, a uniformed officer's beat, is about 4 to 5 square miles. Wow. And this target area was less than 1 square miles, and we had 8 officers in there. Yeah. So you can see the big difference that makes. Wow. They can spend the time, they can get in there and do the things that are critical to reducing crime.
And also, one of the, you talked about uniform, plain clothes, I guess is what we'll say that they were in. They also had cameras that they were equipped with. Can you touch on that and why we decided to use cameras, and was that a useful tool? It
was a very useful tool. We had some technical problems with the cameras. Right. The ones that work the best are the most expensive, and we were trying to cut the cost, and we worked through those issues. But what we ended up doing was getting a camera that would record video and audio, and the officers would wear those. And the reason for that was to make sure that any complaints could be documented and could be dealt with. And we were very, very pleased with the results of the camera. We had some complaints where all we had to do was say, well, we've got the video of the incident, and the person would go away and say, well, I don't want to follow through on the complaint, because they knew that what had happened. And we ended up with just 3 complaints during that 5-month time frame, and all of them were dealt with appropriately.
And then that is a very few number, because I know we talked to Lynchburg, Virginia. They implemented the same sort of unit a couple of years ago, and I got to think one of the first things they told you was be ready for the complaints.
That's right.
Because they received a lot. So having only 3 was a very good success rate, I guess.
Oh, yes, it was. But I think also the Lynchburg did not have the cameras. Right. And we did have the cameras, and a lot of people knew that, and we told people that, and that goes a long ways towards calming people down and getting them to work with you.
And also can help you all in court.
You better believe it. It helps us. It shows us what the officer was seeing and what the officer was hearing, what the officer was saying, and helps the officer's case in court.
Now, I know when you all launched this unit, you really asked any officers within the Danville Police Department if they wanted to take part. And you had a lot of volunteers.
Yes, we did.
And so I want to get the feedback from them, from those officers that they gave you. What was the feedback? Were they enjoying being on the unit? Or?
They loved being on the unit. There were several folks that took adjustments for the schedule, because it was always in the evening and always on the weekend. But they loved it because they felt they were making a good difference. And one of the things that, one of the comments I heard was, if you're working the beat, you're a uniformed officer, you're doing good things because you're answering the calls, but then you can't take care of the other problems that are always out there and that need dealing with.
Right.
You don't have the time to do it. And the street crimes unit certainly had the time to do this, and that's what excited them about it.
Right. Well, Chief, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back from break, I want to break down the numbers for our individuals on the charges that occurred during that, I guess it's 6-7 month period since last November. I think we had over 357 charges in the area and over 280 some arrests. So I want to touch on those when we come back from break. But we also want to let you know at home that we are expanding this area. We are going to head to the south side of the river. We'll touch on that when we come back from break because it was a very successful program here, not only with the Safe and Sound Neighborhoods, but with the Street Crime Unit. And Chief, I know before we go to break, I do want to mention that you all were involved in the community, not just with the Street Crimes Unit. I know a couple of your officers, you as well, attended some of these block parties and were in the community throughout this time as well.
That's right.
Yeah, and I know that's a very positive as well because we weren't just there as a police presence, because I know sometimes when individuals in these communities may see an officer, they clam up and don't want to open up and talk to you all. You're seen as maybe the bad guy in the area. So I think maybe that helped change the perception of the police in that area as well. Do you feel?
I hope so. I really do.
Great. All right, Chief. Well, stay tuned. We'll be right back, and we'll talk to you more about these numbers.
Okay.
All right, stay tuned. We'll be right back.
How can toys like these lead to a 6-year-old's death and leave another child permanently brain damaged? Because they're not toys at all. A safety message from your local fire department and this station.
Well, welcome back to this week's edition of the City Update. I'm your host, Mark Aaron, Multimedia Design Manager for the City of Danville. My guest this week is the Chief of the Danville Police Department, Chief Philip Broadfoot. And in the first half of the show, we gave you an update on our Safe and Sound Neighborhood program that was launched back in November here in the City of Danville to really fight crime in the North Danville area. We gave you those perimeters in the first half of the show. I'll go over those with you again. It was Riverside Drive to 3rd Avenue, and then from North Main, Worsham Street to Locust Lane. And we have been very successful in that area, not only with the police department, but with community development, fighting blight. Public Works Department did quite a bit of work in that area as well, and just getting the community involved and increasing the quality of life in that area. As I mentioned in the first half of the show, we had block parties in that area. Many city departments came out and had informational sessions in that area, so it was a very successful program. And as I mentioned in the first half of the show, we are launching the second focus area, and this will be on the south side of the river. We're going to touch on that and show you those parameters here in just a few minutes. But Chief, before we get into, I guess, the second focus area, I do want to talk a little bit more about the charges for the Street Crimes Unit. As we mentioned, there were many homicides, I think 13 in this area in the past 6 years, and since we implemented the Street Crimes Unit in the Safe and Sound Neighborhood, no homicides have occurred in that focus area, which is a wonderful statistic. But I want to touch on some of these others as well. And as we go down the list, I think we had a total number of 357 charges in the area and 246 individual arrests. Is that correct?
That's correct.
All right. And then looking at the numbers, what was the, I guess, the largest percentage of charges that were made in the area?
Of those 357 charges that were made in the focus area, 84 of them were drunken public. Where officers were engaging people on the street, pedestrians walking, and talking with them and determining that they were under the influence and making arrests, which then led to other arrests. They would find that they were wanted on a warrant or that they were in possession of drugs, and so a number of extra charges, more than one charge, were made on some people.
Right. And I know you got the question quite a bit about how they determine the drunken public and whether a breathalyzer is administered, but it doesn't have to be.
No,
correct?
no. The breathalyzer is only for driving under the influence.
Right.
That's what that is for. The drunken public charge is determined by the officer based on the odor of the alcohol and the demeanor of the person and the situation, and then the arrest is made, and then the officer takes the person down to the jail where the magistrate makes a independent determination as to whether that person is drunk in public, and a warrant is then issued, and they're put in jail for 4 hours until they sober up.
Okay, right. And you said that some of these drunk in public charges led to others as well, and we see here on the list possession of marijuana. We had 53 charges there, and also some possession of cocaine. I guess those two were pretty much tops on the list there after a suspended operating license.
Yes, they would pull over a lot of people for a lot of minor traffic violations, but would give them breaks on the minor traffic violations. But the ones that were driving unsuspended, they would not. They would at least they would write those violations and check them to see if there were any outstanding warrants. And we were able to serve 57 outstanding warrants. Right. By interacting with people and then finding out if they were wanted.
And as we look at the breakdown by age, it looks like a large portion of the charges were for the age group of 20 to 29.
Yes, that's an active group, always has been, always will be, males in that 20 to 29 age group, although the 30 to 50 age group was fairly well represented also.
Okay. Right. And as we look back at the total charges per month, they were fairly consistent, as you see there, 60 in November, 62 in December, and then a slight jump there in January. We had 96 charges in January, and down to February was 78, so pretty consistent throughout our time there.
That's great. We spent a total of 5 months in the target area north of the river, right. And these arrests, these 357 charges and 246 individuals were the result of that 5 months worth of work.
Now, I know as the word got out that we were present in the area, I know the overall criminal activity decreased. Is that fair to say? I know there have been no homicides, but just criminal activity in general.
That's right. It decreased and really resulted in the street crimes unit having to go elsewhere in the city to make good, efficient use of their time, because there were times when there was nothing going on in the focus area.
And so they did make, the street crimes unit made a number of arrests outside the target area, I think 257.
Yes. So, I mean, they were busy. There's no doubt about it.
And the word, I think, got out on the street, and they called it, was it the red zone?
The red zone.
Was that the area?
One of the most amusing stories was that they stopped a person for being drunk in public, and he was outside of the focus area by about half a block, and told the officers that they couldn't arrest him because he wasn't in the red zone.
Thought he was free and clear, just not being in the zone. Well, that's great. You know it's working at that point.
Yes.
Absolutely. Well, Chief, as I mentioned in the first half of the show and in the beginning of our second segment here, we are expanding to the south side of the river, and our viewers are going to see a map on the screen now, and you can see the parameters there. It may be a little tough to see some of the actual streets, but the red outline there shows you the parameters of the second focus area. It'll actually encompass Memorial Drive over to North Ridge and Monument Street, down to Industrial, and over to Central Boulevard. Now, Chief, as you can see there, the pinpoints there show the homicides that occurred in that area. So we had quite a few homicides over the past 6 years in this targeted area. Was that some of the reasoning behind why this area was chosen as a second focus area?
Yes, in the first target area north of the river, we had 13 homicides, and in this one, south of the river, we've had 8 during the last 6 years.
Now, I know a majority of these homicides, though, we have solved. They're no longer
that's
cases.
correct.
Is that correct? Very good. So now, as we move forward into this second focus area, and as you look back at our time in the first area, did this street crimes unit meet your expectations?
It exceeded them. It really did. There were a lot of concerns as far as how the community would accept a very heavy level of enforcement, which is what the street crimes unit was designed for. But we were able to work through that with the community and keep the good statistics, keep the cameras going, and make a difference.
Right. Any stories or takeaways from this first 5 months that you were in the focus area that you'll carry over into the second focus area just to improve our enforcement?
I think we we went in with a good plan, and we're going to continue that plan, and keep the officers out there, of course, during the same hours, during the evening hours, and on the weekends when most of the activity is taking place, and keep up that same level of enforcement, because it does work.
Right. Are you concerned about the crime just moving to a different area of the city? Is that something the police is always battling? When you increase presence in one area, you see crime increase in another. Do we see that trend with this sort of thing, and how do we tackle that?
I think there is some displacement of crime. I don't know if it's as great as people think it is, but certainly when we were in the target area north of the river, when things quieted down and there was nothing going on, those criminals did move to other places.
Right.
And I don't have the hard facts, but our sense was that they had moved into the area south of the river, which was one of the reasons why we chose this as the second area.
Right. Have we seen, not with just the homicides, but criminal activity in general, is this a high percentage area of the city for criminal activity when we look at the statistics that you received?
Yes, in this second target area,
Right.
but just by the mere fact there have been 8 murders there in the last 6 years, that is that's significant.
Yeah.
And that's why we chose this area to focus.
Great. So I know we'll continue with 8 officers on the street crime unit in this new area. Any new tools, anything different that they'll be utilizing as they head forward into this new focus area?
We're trying to upgrade the cameras to get a better quality camera with better audio and digital, and we're experimenting with some of those and testing and evaluating. But as far as the basic structure and the strategy, it's going to remain the same.
And I know we're not abandoning the first focus area as well. We will still be making our way up to that area as well. It's not like we're dropping everything and coming straight south of the river. We will be going back north.
No, we're going to be going back there, because I think what is going to happen in this new area south of the river is the same thing that happened in the other focus area, which was, as word gets out, the crime opportunities will diminish, and the criminals will leave, and we will have to go back to the other area and to other areas in the city to make efficient use of the officers' time.
Well, I asked you about feedback from the officers in the first half of the show, but how about feedback from the citizens? I know we attended many of the block parties. I think many city departments had informational sessions as we got started back in late 2010. But what has been the feedback from the citizens in that first area? And have you heard any information from citizens that are in this second area yet, and what they expect to see from the police department?
Feedback that we got from the citizens in the first target area was positive. They liked what we were doing. I think there was a little apprehension when we first started, but we were able to deal with that and work through it, and got all kinds of good comments from citizens. The officers would talk to homeowners in the area who were glad to see them and thanking them for being out there on the street and dealing with that criminal element. And I think we're going to see the same thing in the new focus area.
Well, Chief, I really appreciate you taking the time to join us today, and congratulations on all the hard work that you and your officers have done with the Street Crimes Unit. We knew this was just one piece of the puzzle for our safe and sound neighborhood, but it has been a very successful piece of that puzzle, and we appreciate all your hard work.
Yes, thank you very much. There's a great group of officers, and they work hard at making this happen.
Well, we look forward to seeing the same success in the new focus area, and we'll definitely bring you back on the show later in 2011 and maybe into 2012 to talk about the success of the new area.
Okay, thank you.
And thank you at home for watching today. If you would like any more information about the Safe and Sound Neighborhood program here in the city of Danville, feel free to call the city manager's office at 799-5100. We've really touched on the Danville Police Department's efforts on today's show, but as we mentioned, there were many other departments that made this a very successful program here in the city of Danville: Community Development, Public Works, Parks, Recreation, and Tourism. They all made a conscious effort to get out into the community, engage the community, and we really believe it was a successful effort, as we saw with the community involvement in the North Danville area. And of course, as we mentioned, no homicides occurred in that focus area since we implemented the Safe and Sound Neighborhood program. We hope to duplicate that same success south of the river And you saw the boundaries a little earlier in this segment. And I will definitely keep you up to date here on River City TV as the Safe and Sound Neighborhood program progresses in the second targeted area. So again, thank you so much for watching today, and until next week, have a great day.